Hello everyone, I hope that you're doing well. I also hope that you left some cookies out on May 31st for gay. I stole that joke from Twitter. Yes, it's Pride Month. I hope that you guys are all celebrating in your own way. I am the Antichrist. Yes, I did just get back from having a little human morsel snack. So excuse my messy mouth if this is your first time here. Maybe that's not the best first impression. But if you are new here, then you should probably know that if you click subscribe, then you devote your soul to me. I keep it nice and safe with me. You don't have to worry about it. My soul is devoted to the algorithm gods, so if you want to help me out with that, then click the like button, click the notification bell, that way you never miss the next video. Today I'm talking about everything that I watched in the month of May, and since I've been traveling around, I'm still not home yet. I have not been watching as many movies as I normally do. My goal is always to watch 365 movies every single year. I think I've still kept up on that because I got pretty far ahead before I left for this grand journey, but I think that we still have over 20 movies to talk about, so let's get into it. Oh, right. Today I wanted to do something that I don't normally do, where I have a very brief little tried to watch section at the beginning. The only time that I really don't finish movies is when I'm watching stuff that I've been sent on physical media that just is not a vibe, and that's typically stuff sent from Horror Pack. So I usually don't talk about it on this channel because I always talk about it on my second channel, my physical media and travel channel, and I do lots of anti-hauls over there. That's usually like the list of movies that I tried to watch but couldn't get through. But since I haven't been able to really make much physical media content while traveling, then we have a brief little tried to watch section here. First of all, I tried to watch the movie Hypnotic. It's on UK Netflix. I don't know if it's on US Netflix or anywhere else. Kate Siegel stars in it. Mike Flanagan's wife, the powerhouse from all of his shows, you know her. And I could not get into it. It was really, really bad. Wasn't a fan of the performances, but I think it's probably because of the writing of the movie. Just couldn't get through that one. The only other one that I couldn't get through this month was one that I tried to watch with my friends Seb and Leanne that I'm staying with here. A movie called Butt Boy. We were super excited about this. We talked about this movie over on the Patreon, and I was gonna like give Butt Boy a solo review over on the Patreon because we're like, come on, it's called Butt Boy. And it's about this guy that goes to get a colonoscopy done, and then he gets addicted to like shoving stuff up his butt. And we made it to the point where he started shoving like whole people up his butt, I think. It was so, like, it was not good. It's so hard to tell how far into the joke the movie is leaning because it feels very, very self-serious, and sometimes that creates the best satire for sure, but it was a little too serious. It was too much. And for the subject matter and everything, it just was really disturbing. Did not like that. So those are the only movies this past month that we didn't finish. Still been watching Queer Eye, still been watching Riverdale, of course. I also finally watched the first season of Love on the Spectrum. I know that I'm super late on that, and I have to wait till I'm back in the States to watch season 2 because I watched it with my boyfriend, so I can't watch it without him. But we really, really liked it. We grew very attached to all the people involved, and I really, really hope that they all find love in the second season. But that does it for TV shows, so we can now get into all the non-horror movies of the month that I watched. Oh, if you're new here, I didn't go over the structure of the video, sorry. We always start with TV shows that I watched, then we get into all the non-horror, then we get into all my horror rewatches of the month, then we get into my new watches of old horror. I've been catching up on a lot of stuff, a lot of international stuff this month. And then finally we talk new horror releases. I try to get through all the non-horror stuff rather quickly so that we can just focus on the horror. So first up we have Zombieland, which I guess this is a dark comedy. I guess you could consider this a horror movie because it has zombies in it. It's just so light on the horror, and I feel like if you asked the actors involved, then they probably would have been like, no, I wasn't in a horror movie, because you know how they are. It doesn't feel like a horror movie to me, it just feels like a comedy, so whatever. I like Zombieland. It's like a 3.5 star. It's just a good time. It's very rewatchable. I did make note on Letterboxd that I think it's diabolical that they have Emma Stone in like a full blowout and a full-on beat, just like this, honestly. She looks kind of like this in the movie. When it's a zombie apocalypse, like, get real. Okay, this is gonna be the last time that I'll apologize for this, because by the time I shoot my next main channel video, I'm not gonna be here anymore. So this is the last time I'll apologize for the ever-shifting UK clouds, okay? I can't control the weather. Now it's too bright on my face, whatever. Italian Netflix also seems to love Jesse Eisenberg because we also found 30 Minutes or Less on there. That also stars Aziz Ansari. It has like kind of a stacked cast. Danny McBride is also there, and Danny McBride's character basically coerces Jesse Eisenberg's character to get him $100,000 by strapping a bomb to him. And it's called 30 Minutes or Less because he's a pizza delivery guy and like that's his whole thing. It's a really bad movie. Like I didn't really enjoy myself very much. In fact, I started to fall asleep during the movie, and I'm so embarrassed to say that that is a thing that happens to me now. I hold so much disdain for people that fall asleep during movies because I'm like, what, you don't have the willpower to just stay awake? Because I used to, but now I'm almost 25, so I'm bordering on ancient. I guess this is the age where you start falling asleep in movies movies. Wasn't feeling it. I think that like 1 or 2 jokes of the movie landed and that was about it. I also rewatched Roman Holiday, and if you're new here and or if you don't follow me on Letterboxd, Roman Holiday is in my top 4 on Letterboxd. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It remains to this day. I showed it to Scott for the first time. He had never seen it, and I just wept for like the last 20 minutes of the movie. That will never change. Rewatched a few other favorites. Rewatched Superbad. Rewatched Lady Bird. I was a little bit nervous going back to Lady Bird because I hadn't rewatched any of Greta Gerwig's movies since seeing Barbie, and Barbie was a little too young for me, for my taste. Wasn't a super big fan of Barbie, so I was a little bit worried about going back and watching Lady Bird and Little Women, movies that came out when I was a teenager, and I loved them back then, and I was like, ooh, what if I don't think that they're as good now? But I do. Lady Bird is a perfect film, don't worry. Superbad, still love Superbad. Up next we have Petite Maman. This is a French film that had a lot of buzz when it came out a couple of years ago. Did really, really well in all like the festival circuits, and all of the, you know, like uppity film people were like, oh my god, Petite Maman. It's about this little girl whose grandmother passes away, and she ends up running into the younger version of her own mother while her mom and dad are clearing out her mom's old family house. The title of the movie does mean Little Mother. A really, really interesting premise, but unfortunately I just did not really get the hype for this one. It bummed me out because I thought that it was something I would really resonate with. I've had a tumultuous relationship with my mother. I thought the movie was really gonna hit because I'm like, wow, what I wouldn't give to meet a younger version of my mother and to just give her a hug and tell her everything's gonna be okay. I thought that I'd be weeping by the end of that movie too, because I'm a crier. And I just didn't really get it. Like, it just didn't really hit. I thought that it was very cute, very much worth the watch. Just didn't really cut deep, didn't do much for me emotionally. I can definitely still recommend it though. Next up we have a 2-minute short film called Coming Out. It's just Godzilla having a little child that ends up being transgender, and it's so wholesome and supportive. Loved it. It's absolutely worth the little 2-minute watch. You can find it on YouTube. That would have been on my watch list for a long time, so I'm really glad that I finally got to it. And for the last non-horror movie of the month, we have Alice in Wonderland. Rewatched that for the first time since I was a child, and I thought that I was gonna like it more. But now I'm kind of understanding why I didn't like it very much as a kid. When I was a kid, I preferred the stuff that really cut deep. I had Lion King on repeat. I had Corpse Bride on repeat. Stories about love and loss were my thing. Alice in Wonderland, it doesn't really have a plot. I don't really love the musical numbers. I love the opening of the movie, the song where she's just like laying in the flowers, give it to me all day. The rest of the movie, somehow it's just not for me. I am called Haunted Hippie. I've done a lot of shrooms in my life, and yet, you know, like, and yet. So anyway, we can move on briefly through my horror rewatches. I rewatched the original The Strangers to prep for the new one. If you missed it, I did a review of the new movie, but it was with a heavy emphasis on comparison to the original. So you can consider it like an original versus remake. That was the last video that I put out on this channel. Go check it out. I also rewatched the first and second Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Love both of those movies so much. The second movie remains like a 3.5-star film, but there's so much about it to love. Like, it's just a good, solid 80s horror film. What was special about this rewatch of these movies though is that we watched them on Seven Leanne's little VHS TV combo player, and I can honestly say it was my best viewing experience ever of those movies. With the first movie, I've watched it on my parents' 65-inch flat screen. I've watched it on my 55-inch flat screen. I have watched it projected on the wall of the mausoleum at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. And this past time, watching it on a tiny little shitty VHS player TV was quite honestly the best viewing experience I ever had. It's the first time I've ever given the movie a perfect 5-star rating. It just was a vibe. And somehow watching it on a tiny TV, I guess as God intended for, like, you know, 80s slashers, it was probably the most frightening viewing experience that I ever had of the film. Those little VHS TVs, they got a certain je ne sais quoi. Now I'm dying to watch The Ring on it too. I need one of those little TVs for myself. I do have a VHS player, but I haven't hooked it up to my TV yet, and my VHS collection is very expansive now. Whenever I move out of a place where I can only afford to rent a bedroom, that'll be probably first on the list of things that I buy. Maybe even before I buy a couch. Look who's here! It's Toddy. This might be the last time you guys see him, actually. He wants to bark. He wants to bark out the window so bad. Fearsome little guard dog you are. He's not like Lulu, who was in my last video. He very much has a schedule. First, new watch of an old horror film. Guess who finally watched American Mary? Starring starring the Queen Catherine Isabel. This was on my watch list for way too long. Medical student Mary Mason is lured into a world of performing freakish surgeries to earn money for school. American Mary was a tough pill to swallow. The Soska sisters really interest me now. It's interesting that this is like their top billed movie on Letterboxd. It kind of bummed me out because I was like, oh, well, I mean, what else do they have in their catalog? Tough to digest though, this movie. I did really like it, but I ended up only giving it 3.5 stars because the last like 15 minutes, do they exist? No, Todd agrees. No, they do not. I thought the ending of the movie sort of undid a lot of what they set up. Thematically, I left the movie feeling very confused despite really enjoying the ride of it. Catherine Isabel has a fantastic performance. I love how far it takes the concept of doing what you gotta do to feel comfortable in your own skin. I don't know what the intention was, but it definitely kind of felt almost like maybe a trans allegory or something. Also, man, bad. That also, I really got that from the movie also, and I appreciate that. I don't think that it's one that I would rewatch anytime soon. It was really tough, but I enjoyed it and I would like to own it. Oh, also finally watched The Mask of the Red Death. I'm so surprised I hadn't prioritized this one earlier because Vincent Price is one of my favorite actors of all time, and this was one of his bigger movies outside of like what he did in the 50s, you know, House on Haunted Hill and House of Wax. But also with Roger Corman's passing, it felt like the best time to finally give it a go. A European prince terrorizes the local peasantry while using his castle as a refuge against the Red Death plague that stalks the land. This one was another one that I was surprised that I didn't like it so much. It was another 3-star film for me, and it's very similar to Alice in Wonderland actually, where conceptually I'm like, yes, give it to me all day, but then in execution, something about it just doesn't resonate and or doesn't really engage me. There are scenes of the movie that I really like. I love Vincent Price's performance. I love the performance by a lot of people because he is a tyrant and he orders people to act like animals around him. Honestly, that looked really fun. There's a scene where everybody just starts acting like animals in the party, and I'm like, how fun. I was born in the wrong generation. Mask of the Red Death, again, is one that I could recommend. I don't know the next time that I would want to rewatch it though. Next up, we have The Stuff. This is a fun little 80s flick. In The Stuff, a private detective is trying to get to the bottom of this new product that is sweeping the nation. It's a tasty food called The Stuff. This movie is a scathing take on Reagan-era economics, and basically all of the policy that he passed that made businesses be able to do whatever the hell they wanted. For my international viewers, yeah, he's the guy that's responsible for trickle-down economics and basically like every shitty thing that's gone down in the United States in like the last 50 years. He was the guy that was like, let's make America great. This movie is probably the lowest quality movie I've ever given 4 stars to. It is so low budget and it's so apparent, but the effects are so goddamn charming. Typically, I feel like for really low budget 80s, you're only watching it for the kills and the goofy practical effects maybe. This is the first time that I feel like something so low budget from back then has been able to have such a rich storyline as well. I mean, it's no John Carpenter's Halloween, $300,000. It was made for almost $2 million, but it looks like it looks very low budget. It's so much fun, can highly recommend. There are some really big action sequences. I guess, okay, yeah, I was saying like it was low budget, but really you can just tell that a lot of budget was put into a few really big effects like car explosions and stuff. So then the rest of the movie, the budget suffered a little bit. I think that they probably decided rather than to have the highest quality camera, they were like, let's make some stuff explode, and I respect that. It's such a great concept too. I feel like it's just as relevant now as it's ever been. Really enjoyed myself. I watched it with Seb and Leanne and our friend Samuel. They all loved it too. So I think that people of all different types will enjoy the movie. It's not looking so good for the next movie, which is Nocebo. I actually really don't know how to pronounce this one, but I found this one on UK Netflix. A fashion designer suffers from a mysterious illness that confounds her doctors and frustrates her husband. Help arrives in the form of a Filipino nanny who uses traditional folk healing to reveal a horrifying truth. This one should have been a banger because it stars Mark Strong and Eva Green, and they are powerhouses. I feel like they don't really get the flowers that they deserve, to be honest with you. I love Mark Strong in Kingsman, and also Eva Green is fantastic in whatever Tim Burton project that he throws her in. My favorite performance of hers has to be Dark Shadows. We have the same birthday. Oh my god, she was born on July 6th, 1980. Queen. Oh my god. Okay, anyways, it's also a psychological thriller. It's very trippy and it has like a very strong social message to it, but it ended up being like a 2.5-star film for me. Again, so many movies, great ideas, but not a great execution. With this one too, especially, I appreciated the sentiment, but everything was extremely on the nose, and it wasn't a bit. It wasn't like the stuff where everyone is in on it, and yes, the actors are playing it straight, but it's for satirical purposes. No, this one was playing it extremely straight. There's no wink, there is no humor in the movie, and it's just really, really, really heavy-handed in its messaging, which I feel like kind of weighs the movie down. Like, it's just, I'm not into it. I appreciate it. I appreciate that the movie exists. I think that all of those parasites that do Shein hauls on TikTok and stuff should definitely watch the film. That movie literally feels just like a direct response to those people who unfortunately exist. All your fast fashion can choke, okay? Secondhand shops, thrifting, vintage, learn about it. Anyways. Ooh, next up, oh, this one's cute. Re/Member. I found this one on UK Netflix as well, but I think it's a Netflix original, I think, so it should be a global film. This Japanese film follows 6 high school students stuck in a murderous time loop, and they must find the scattered remains of an unknown victim to break the curse and finally see another day. Okay, so this movie is bad. Like, I don't want you to get me wrong. It's totally a teen scream film. This is a movie that I would have loved as a teenager for sure. And the inner child in me, you know what? She was fed. Really enjoyed it. I loved how stupid it was. I love a good bad movie, and this one was not even all bad. There were some parts of it, like the relationships that build between all the teenagers, that were really well done. A lot of them had good chemistry together. I really like the performances of all these people. It's just the plot and the movie itself was kind of stupid. And if you're familiar with like almost any kind of Asian cinema, I feel like you see it most in South Korean cinema, where they love to genre blend. So one moment you're watching a horror movie, the next you are watching like a literal soap opera. That kind of happens in this movie, but I like it. I enjoy the vibe switch up, and normally I don't. It's the one flaw that I see in Train to Busan, actually, but I haven't watched that movie in several years now, so maybe I would like that now. Anyway, if you like a good teen scream, if you like a good bad movie, absolutely go for this one. Like, I'm assuming that most of you probably have Netflix, so just give it a try. They're stuck in a murderous time loop, as it said, and so you get to see a lot of deaths. I don't think that most of them are particularly groundbreaking or anything, but there are some good ones in there. So if for no other reason, then just go in to watch like these 6 kids get murdered over and over and over. Why not? I had a really good time personally. I'll probably seek out more stuff that this director has done. Oh, same with the next one, which is a Norwegian film called The Trip. I told you I was trying to catch up on international stuff. The Trip follows this married couple as they go up for a weekend away at their cabin, but unluckily for both of them, they both have a sinister plan for the other. That's all I'm gonna say, because the amount of twists that this movie has. Noomi Rapace. Doug, hi baby. Whoa. She's a Swedish actress, and if she looks familiar, you might have at least heard of the movie Lamb that came out, I think, a few years ago now, where she is part of a couple that finds this little lamb child, half human, half lamb, and they raise it together. Anyways, also, I just looked her up, and apparently she couldn't read or write until she was 12. That's an article that released 3 days ago. That's crazy, because now she's like fully multilingual. She is fantastic in the movie. She has my favorite performance, but all the performances are unreal. And I know that I was just like halfway complaining about genre blending in movies when it's very like sudden. I don't mind a genre blend when you have like a romantic thriller, when it's all blended throughout, you know, like Love Lies Bleeding, the best movie of this year. I just don't like when you have like full-blown horror scene then full-blown romance scene, you know? The Trip does indeed do that. It goes from being a pretty serious drama to then kind of being a horror film to then like a full-blown comedy. It manages to balance it pretty well though. You might feel differently, you might, but it ended up being a 4-star film for me, and I just cannot tell you too much about it because this is a movie that you best go into blind. The only other dark comedy I've seen out of Norway is Troll Hunter, which is fantastic. Now I'm hankering to rewatch that. I'm so happy I've chosen this month to get into more international horror because it's just been a long time coming. So stick around. Gonna have a lot more recommendations for you soon. Maybe not including the next one though. I saw The Devil. This is a movie that is very very popular, yes, and I think that it's kind of considered a cult classic, if not just true classic, from South Korea. When his fiancée is murdered, Secret Service agent Soo-hyun sets out to seek revenge. He identifies the killer and hunts him down time and time again in a game of cat and mouse. So this movie just, I think, was too long for me. I feel a little bit harsh because on Letterboxd I only gave it 3 stars, and because it's called I Saw the Devil, I said I saw the repetition of ideas. I certainly didn't see the devil. Did you see my dad in that movie? Also, have you seen my hair? Seb cut my hair for me today, and he also did my makeup. I think it's so pretty. But yeah, I Saw the Devil. It is 2 hours and 22 minutes long. I really think that an entire act of the movie could have been cut out because he tracks this guy down like 3 or 4 separate times, and really the same thing happens every time. There were a few scenes that I thought were absolute perfection. I think the fight scenes are done so well. The choreography, the special effects, you know, the breaking glass, love all of that stuff. I thought the performances were also perfection. It's just a little bit too repetitive. It's really, really long. For such a simple concept, I just don't appreciate that it was so drawn out. I also just found it a bit shallow. Like, if it's gonna be that long, I would prefer it to be thematically quite a bit deeper so that there's just more to chew on during that runtime. It just was a pretty basic revenge movie. Like, there really wasn't anything else to it. I thought it would have been so interesting to spend more time with the antagonist. And I know, okay, well, actually, those lines get really blurred, protagonist, antagonist. It's a mess. Like, a mess in a good way. Like, our lead character, he's very complicated. But I would prefer to spend more time in the antagonist's weird world, because we dip our toes into it sometimes, and we're introduced to some really interesting characters. But it's not enough. Like, there's almost too much of a balance there, where I'm almost like, you know, I kind of would like to follow this asshole. Like, what else does he get up to when he's not murdering people? But also just a really tough watch, and that absolutely colored my experience. It is just not a movie for me. I am glad that I watched it. I would say that I do recommend it. Make sure that you look up triggers, that you're in a good headspace, etc. if you're sensitive. Glad that I watched it. I don't think that I would watch it again. Now I really, really want to watch Oldboy because I've seen a lot of comparisons to it, and I have never seen a Park Chan-wook film. I know. Don't come for me, but I think that I'm gonna start with Oldboy. That will do it for all my new watches of old horror, though. I got caught up on some really, really good stuff this month. But now we can talk about new releases, including, first up, Stop Motion, that was just released to Shudder. A talented stop-motion animator becomes consumed by the grotesque world of her horrifying creations, with deadly results. I appreciated so much about this movie. The first thing that comes to mind is the sound design, honestly, because it is disgusting. Also, I don't know how much I just showed you from the trailer. I don't know how much they show you, but I feel like I want to keep that very vague because there are some visuals in this movie that are also just truly disgusting. The stop motion is done so well. I think the performance of our lead is also exquisite. Conceptually, thematically, getting imposter syndrome as a creative, I was like, girl, I see you. Unfortunately, the plot just didn't quite tie everything together for me. What it all ended up kind of boiling down to, what it felt like to me, is just woman crazy. And I get it. I do love me a good wild woman story where a lady is just fucking people up. I just don't really find that super interesting anymore because it's just been done so many times, you know? Your lead character slowly being consumed by grief or mania or whatever. So while I loved all the outside packaging of it, I just didn't find the plot to be really that interesting. I felt like I was watching just a repackaged Babadook, and that is not a bad thing, but it just kind of devolved into being something a little bit basic. It had some tropes that I won't spoil because they're meant to be twist reveals, but they're quite obvious, and I'm just not a fan of having to see that again. So bear all of that in mind. I do still definitely recommend it, especially if you yourself are a creative. I think that it will resonate. Imposter syndrome makes us do really weird stuff, but I just don't see it being one of my favorites of the year. I also, of course, watched The Strangers Chapter 1. That's up next, but again, I will just remind you to watch last week's video. Did a whole comparison, remember? It was good. It popped off. Go check it out. Unfortunately, the last movie to talk about would be Monster, which is a Netflix original. If you couldn't tell, I've signed on to my friend's Netflix account, and I think that I am gonna get Netflix again when I get back to the States. I'm gonna get an extension from my parents. I am not spending like $22 a month or whatever on Netflix. Are you kidding me? I've just been catching up on a lot of Netflix stuff. Anyways, Monster. This is an Indonesian remake of the 2020 film The Boy Behind the Door. war, and so it follows two children attempting to flee a dangerous kidnapper. This movie was really, really bad. I'm really bummed out because I'll reiterate for the 84th time that I am trying to watch more international horror at the moment. I was like, oh, Indonesian horror. I don't think that I've ever watched an Indonesian horror film before. And I made it maybe like 30 minutes into the movie and was really not feeling it. So typically when that happens, if I'm really, really not feeling something, then I'll start to read the reviews on Letterboxd because I try to go in blind. I don't look up reviews ahead of time for anything that I watch. It happens with brand new releases because you just kind of can't avoid seeing what people are saying on the internet. But started checking out the Letterboxd reviews, and it wasn't until then that I learned that it was a remake of The Boy Behind the Door. And I was like, oh god, wow. I started to feel even more strongly that the movie did not need to exist. It's just extremely repetitive. I think the lead actress, the little girl, she was fantastic. Also, if you're put off by like international cinema and subtitles, like if you can't read or something, don't worry, there's pretty much no dialogue at all in Monster, but I'm not gonna recommend it to you anyway, so I don't know why I'm telling you this. She's fantastic. She does so much acting without saying a single word, but oh, mama, the whole like cat and mouse situation, it hinges on the characters making really frustrating decisions because they have to keep it contained to this house and they have to make it drawn out enough to where it's a feature-length film, but there also has to be action, right? And so it just ends up getting really, really repetitive because it's just these two kids, it's just these two kidnappers. There is only so much that you can do, especially there's only so much that you can do that hasn't been done before already. For some reason, it makes me think of The People Under the Stairs, a nearly perfect Wes Craven film, because in that movie, obviously, they managed to make just the single location of that house remain so dynamic throughout the runtime. They did not do that in Monster, I'll tell you that much. So if you're like me and you just like to browse the horror selection on streaming services and add a bunch of stuff to your list, and then just, you know, kind of throw things on to try them out, that is one that I'll let you know that you can skip. I have very cluttered watch lists and it feels really good to like clean them out, so that's one that you too can put in the bin. It has gotten very dark throughout the course of filming, my god. Just putting the brightness up a tad for the outro, because we made it. That was everything that I watched in the month of May. I need to go finish my little human snack, but before I do, I will just let you know that I post weekly videos to my second channel as well, whether it be about physical media or whether it be a travel video. I also have a Patreon and you get a bonus video there every single week as well. So if you're a patron, that's 3 new videos from me every single week. Everything you need, including all my social media, is listed down below, but more than anything, I just hope that you enjoyed this video and I hope I catch you in the next one. Bye!